Hello everybody, Corpulent Brony here. So this week we have the first episode featuring only Applejack out of the main 6. Haven't we had enough of those already in season 4? I guess not though. Anyway, for an episode with no book horse, it wasn't too bad I suppose. A lot's happened. There were tons of punny westernisms like
What the hey just happened?
And a new character was introduced who appears to be afflicted with gigantism, and the new location of the Cutie Mark City was brought up.
Cutie Mark City!
But there are 3 issues in this episode I want to focus on in this video: filly napping, cutie marks, and getting lost in the wild. This is the first episode where the aspect of filly napping has entered canon.
You're under arrest for filly napping!
Even the sheriff at first didn't believe the baddest outlaw around, Troubleshoes, would stoop to abducting foals.
Troubleshoes done a lot of bad things in his day, but nothing like that.
I think it says a lot about the evolution of the show that they'd introduce such a concept, especially as they were so reluctant to fully tackle the issue of death just in the prior episode. Of course, our Eeyore-like gargantuan horse wasn't really a kidnapper, but I find the idea that such an evildoer could exist in Equestria to be a bit unsettling. I don't think we would have seen something like this in seasons 1 or 2. Continuing the theme this season of Cutie Mark magic, the episode reveals another aspect of Cutie Mark. Their meanings can be misinterpreted by their bearers, resulting in the sad case of Troubleshoes, a pony who fails to realize his dream of being in a rodeo and is instead subjugated to a sad mobile home in the middle of nowhere, relegated to skulking around rodeos and inadvertently tipping over precariously piled barrels and bales of hay. Luckily, our plucky Cutie Mark seeking heroines arrive on the scene to prod and manipulate the guy into doing something he doesn't really want to. Wait, this plot seems familiar. In any event, his cutie mark and thus his special talent is being unlucky? It kinda doesn't make sense. I mean, why would the gods of the cutie marks curse a poor, innocent pony with such a horrible future? Of course, as the Crusaders explain, this talent can be leveraged to comedic effect as a rodeo clown, thus fulfilling his lifelong dream of being a performer in the rodeo. In any event, it's an important lesson to learn about cutie marks and the roles they can play in the lives of our little ponies. Finally, watching the CMC wander around lost in the forest reminded me of a recent personal experience when I found myself lost in the wild. A few years ago, the mare friend and I set out on one of our cross-country driving trips. On this particular day, we were driving across the Nevada desert on beautiful US 50. Just across the border from Utah, we decided to stop at a place called Garnet Hill near Ely, a small county recreational area in the middle of nowhere that is sprinkled with garnets, free for the taking. We drove to the parking lot at the top of the hill and thus began our garnet hunt. There were a ton of paths on the hill crisscrossing each other, and there wasn't much of a line of sight due to a lot of desert plants and bushes growing on the hill. We started out looking for garnets and actually did find quite a few. At one point, I decided to head back towards the car in the parking lot, while the mare friend was going to continue on down the hill looking for garnets. Unfortunately, this was the first mistake we made. I wandered around the hill looking for more garnets with my head down, not even looking at where I was going. Eventually, I realized I wasn't really getting to the parking lot, and I began to realize I didn't know where I was. I walked around the top of the hill but just couldn't find the parking lot anywhere. You see, it wasn't exactly at the top of the hill, it was just very, very close to the top. I started hearing the mare friend, or someone, calling out in the distance. I'm pretty sure they were yelling out my name, and this started to scare me because I started to worry that mare friend was lost somewhere in the wild. I kinda freaked out and I started calling back. I couldn't find her, and my priority switched from finding the car to finding her. I looked all over the place, I kept wandering. I was obviously wandering in circles because I would come across the same area again and again and again. Just like in the movies and on TV when they describe how people who are lost tend to wander in circles, it was happening to me exactly that way. I began to get very afraid, and I didn't really know what to do. I was starting to panic. I didn't know where to go. I was trying to keep myself calm. I had watched a lot of survival shows, and I knew that the trick in any sort of situation like this was to remain as calm as possible. So I got a hold of myself and took stock of my situation. situation. Neither of us had brought water with us, unfortunately. Again, another mistake. But luckily, I did have my cell phone with me. I tried to use the GPS and the maps on my cell phone to navigate my way back to the car. Unfortunately, GPS and a cell phone, they don't really have a compass in them usually, or the compass isn't very reliable. The way most phones with GPSs tell you direction is when you're heading towards a direction, the phone can take your location data and extrapolate what direction you're heading in. So it basically calculates direction heading based on your current path of travel. So if I'm standing trying to figure out where the heck I am on the map, it doesn't tell me where I'm going, so I gotta walk in order to get that direction heading. So I would start walking, but then because I was under some coverage, not a whole lot of trees and stuff, but there were some trees, I didn't have a very good signal. So sometimes the direction I was heading would change drastically, even though I was still heading in a straight line. As a result, I was having a lot of trouble figuring out where the heck I was. Even though I thought I was heading towards the road, it didn't seem like it was the road I was heading towards because I kept thinking I would be right on top of it, but it wasn't there. Finally, I decided to call 911. The dispatcher was pretty helpful, and they were getting ready to actually send someone out to find me. I explained that even the mayor friend was missing somewhere, and I was just so concerned about everything. But as I was on the phone with the 911 operator, I finally did happen across the road I was heading towards. And luckily, I was very close to the parking lot as well. I hiked a short distance up the road, and sure enough, the mayor friend was up there waiting for me. She was extremely upset herself, and I don't blame her. She said she was minutes away from busting into the window of the car with a rock in order to get at her own cell phone, which she had left in the car, and her bottle of water, which was also in the car. For you see, she did get lost as well. As she wandered down the hillside looking for Garnet, she did start to call out my name to figure out where she was. She couldn't find me, and she couldn't find the parking lot either, but she continued on down the hill and actually ended up at the road that we used to get up to the top of the hill. She recognized the road and decided to hike her way back up the way we had come in the car. In addition to not having water or a cell phone, she also was just wearing some flimsy shoes. Again, this entire time we had just planned on getting out of the car for a few minutes to look for garnets. We hadn't planned on such a freaking ordeal. Anyway, she had found her way back up to the parking lot, and I still wasn't there. She said she could hear me calling out in the distance, and she'd sometimes call back from up at the parking lot, but she didn't want to leave, obviously, the parking lot to try and find me because that would just get her in the same mess all over again. After being reunited, I realized something very obvious that I probably should have realized a hell of a lot sooner. I had the keys to the car with me at all times. At any point, I could have just started pushing the lock button, you know, to make the car's horn beep, and that surely would have given me the location of the car, right? I don't know why. I think I was panicking on some level, and I didn't realize this at the time. If I would have realized it sooner, I'm sure things wouldn't have gotten as hairy as they did. I guess the moral of the story is try to be prepared when you're going out into the wild, even if you're not planning on being out very long. It's common sense. Always bring your cell phone with you no matter what. If you are in the desert or really anywhere, you should try and bring water with you too, especially if you're going to go out of line of sight from your car. Also, if you're with a friend, don't split up. Well, let me know in the comments section below what you thought about this episode or even my crazy story about getting lost in the wild. And if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to subscribe and join the Corpulent Cartel for more great content. Thanks for watching, every Brony. Que te autumn Cancio Flash Sentry, esse de lindo.
Hammer those joints, work in teams, turn them around quick by the right.